Jeuno, Ronnie, and Iji, and Tanith, and Fia, Regier, and Selen, and Thops, and Irina. But do you recall the most jolly NPC of them all? Alex, the Iron Fist Warrior Jar, had a very mighty fist. And those are all the parody lyrics I came up with, so let's start the video forthwith. The Yuletide is upon us, so let's take a look at the jolliest of the lands between. He who stands as a light throughout the game, from Limgrave to Farum Azula, shining brighter than the Erd Tree, filling us with hope and incandescent reassurance. Join me now as we look at the lore and significance of the Jolly Jar Alexander, as we will see the undaunted Ubermensch of the lands between. And as we get going, just a note, feel free to subscribe if you haven't, as that's many of you. I hope you enjoy the video and have a great Christmas and holiday season. Well wishes for the end of this year and the beginning of the new one. And with that, we move on to Alexander, who seems to me to represent the direct message of the game from Miyazaki. This jar is undaunted by difficulty and constantly seeks to overcome the trials and tribulations of the lands between. Those of you who saw my Philosophy of Elden Ring video may remember that I had a section all about Alexander and how he highlights the embracement of struggle. This makes him an even greater figure than he at first seems. He is the embodiment of the philosophy of the whole game, a message which stretches back to at least the first Souls games. Now, where most players meet Alexander for the first time, we come across him struggling, needing our help to get out of a hole he is trapped in because he is a jar. Alexander is not well suited for the world of the lands between, especially not for being a warrior in it. He gets stuck in holes, his body is prone to cracking even when just getting out of said holes, and his kin are hunted by poachers in their town of Jarburg. Nonetheless, he persists and strives to be a fighter, and we get to see his journey as it coincides with ours, whether that be in the Radahn Festival, or at Mount Gelmir, or fighting the Fire Giant. And every time we meet him, Alexander radiates an infectious jolliness. He is constantly laughing and chuckling, even when he almost dies.
Oh, that mighty wallop of yours almost spelt the end of me.
He is always looking on the bright side of things in a way that doesn't ignore or minimize the strife or trials, but takes it head on and integrates it into something brighter. We see this integration on strong display at the Radahn Festival. Heading towards it on the blighted road eastward, we see Alexander overflowing with excitement. He talks about the expected festival of Radahn, where he hopes to learn more about the ways of war. He says,
I'd heard whispers of such festivities before. Doesn't the notion set your breast aflutter?
Once again, we see his joyous attitude towards combat. And this positive disposition towards conflict is a central feature of Elden Ring and its forebears. In discussing the role of conflict in the game, Miyazaki said in an interview that, in our games specifically, hardship is what gives meaning to the experience, and that he wants as many players as possible to experience the joy that comes from overcoming hardship. I touched on this concept in my philosophy video along with another point by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, whose writings have been a powerful influence both directly and indirectly on Elden Ring. As the Iron Fist gets giddy about growing his skills of warfare, he perfectly encapsulates something Nietzsche wrote about men, or jarmen in this case, that they are to be trained for war, all else is folly. And war training indeed takes place in the great battle against Radahn. Before the fight, Alexander is nervous, but at the same time bursting with anticipation.
To think, I could face a great champion of the shattering, a demigod in the flesh. Oh, God. In truth, I quiver at the thought. Such is his frightful repute. But the fear simply assures me the ordeal is worth undertaking.
He accepts his fear as part and parcel of an endeavor which is worthwhile. That it is scary signifies that it is worth doing. We see him find beauty in darkness once more after the fight's conclusion. At first he is ashamed, saying,
Ah, hello there. It was a battle marvelously fought. You are well and truly a champion, friend. I, on the other hand, am nothing but a crock. One hit was all it took to crack me, and for my insides to come spilling out. After that, my hid like a coward. And as such, I can hardly stand to face one such as you.
He begins remiss about his poor performance, but as the paragon of striving virtue he is, Alexander doesn't stay that way for long. He instead finds heart and continues.
But don't you think I've given up just yet? As luck would have it, there's a veritable mountain of warriors' bodies right here. If I can just squeeze this bunch down inside me, I'll be a mighty warrior again in no time. And you know, the bodies found here are exceedingly fine. Who could expect any less from the very warriors who fought in the Shattering? The greatest of all wars. Just you wait and see, friend. I'll grow even stronger. Just you wait when next we meet.
Rather than be struck down by the pain of defeat, he takes it as an opportunity to grow, gaining strength through those who had fallen in the field of battle. And of course, he finds time to laugh about it all, too. Then he continues his journey. We find him stuck again during a brief moment of nostalgia and
mawkishness
near his home, Jarburg. We find him tempering himself in the fires of Mount Gelmir.
Oh, mountain of fire! Bake me in your flames!
He even joins us atop the highest peak in the lands between for an epic fight against the fire giant.
Above the lofty clouds, the icy giant's peak doth soar. Here lieth the flame of ruin, which ever-burning roars.
After the fire giant and his god is felled, we come to crumbling Farum Azula, a snapshot out of time and the real beginning of our journey's end. At the culmination of this dungeon, we begin the boss gauntlet which continues through to the game's finale. It is also here where we find the conclusion to Alexander's questline. We are here to fight him, for his journey of combat and championing could have no other end more true. When we find Alexander, he has something to ask of us. In full, he says,
I see you finally made it here yourself. The city hanging in the air is slowly crumbling. What an incredible place we find ourselves. But that aside, you're certainly a force to be reckoned with, eh? I doubt there's a single soul who could have handled that giant other than you. It was practically a god. Of course, I count myself, the great Alexander, among the many. Which means I've but one thing to ask of you. Would you kindly undertake my ordeal? Come and tell me when you're ready. I've been longing to fight a warrior as accomplished as you. You are ready then, I take it? Then let us begin. I am the great Jar Warrior, Iron Fist Alexander. Lend me strength, O warriors within. Let us become one champion together.
Alexander has undertaken his journey through the lands between, for combat, for battle, for growth, and for the jolly times that such a journey brings. Here at the end of time, the only thing we can do to honor and act right by him is to match that conviction. To quote Nietzsche once again, in one's friend, one should have one's best enemy. Alexander recognizes us as one of the mightiest in the land, and that means that we are one of the best enemies he could have. This fight happens as a testament to our shared camaraderie, friendship, and respect. It is an embracement of the ideals Nietzsche highlights in his works and Miyazaki has woven into these games. And all of this truly comes to its bittersweet yet merry culmination at the end of the fight. Once we best Alexander, he departs with these final words.
As I suspected, victory was impossible. This vessel was found lacking. My thanks. I knew you were the stuff of champions. It was a marvelous battle. I implore you, take what I bequeath from inside me. All vessels are destined to one day break. But the great Alexander lived as a warrior to his last.
Alexander passes on in positive affirmation. He knows that death comes for us all, and he is at peace with that. He accepts his life, including its end, content and exuberant with joy about how he lived. In his last moments, he goes with laughter. And just as we couldn't expect any other end to Alexander's journey other than this fight, we could never expect him to pass on in any manner other than jolly merriment. He had to laugh. Here, he once more extols the game's virtue. In line with Miyazaki's hopes, Alexander finds joy in the hardship of life and conflict. And in light of when Nietzsche pronounced laughter holy, Alexander becomes divine in his passing. And he even continues to be an advocate for perseverance after dying. When he goes, he drops 2 items, the Shard of Alexander and Alexander's Innards. The Shard is a testament to his strength. It strengthens our skills and notes the inclusion of Radahn's power. The Innards, however, are not used by us players. Instead, they are passed on to Jarbairn, a young warrior jar hopeful who wishes to follow his uncle Alexander's footsteps in becoming a great warrior. The Innards note that the jars contain dregs inherited from those who came before. Thus are warriors passed from jar to jar, carrying dreams of greatness. In Jarbairn, Alexander and his striving will live on, helping the young warrior to grow and giving him a great base of power to build off of, especially considering it even has a piece of Radahn. Alexander was a mighty friend and warrior. He embodied the Nietzschean ideals of self-overcoming and finding joy in struggle, ideas that permeate Elden Ring and the lands between. His journey is one that provided us with light and levity throughout our own struggles in the game. His end provided us with a profound beauty and acceptance of life. He affirmed to the highest degree, in a way unmatched by many, maybe even most, other stories and characters. It is a lesson the game tries to impart in many ways, but Alexander may be the most personal, seeing as how he was and is our friend. And outside of the lands between, IRL, we are in our own time of merriment, and maybe we can elevate this season by remembering the example Alexander lived. I have no doubt that Nietzsche would have considered a character of Alexander's merit to be fit for the title Übermensch, one who makes their own way and lives in full affirmation of life. And I think we can all agree that Alexander is fit to be called the jolliest of all the NPCs. Did the story and lore of Alexander leave you with any particular feeling? If so, let me read about it in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, you can subscribe, support me on Patreon, or join my Discord. Thank you all for watching. I wish you a wonderful Christmas, holiday season, and changing of years. Peace.